Hey there, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I'm the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. Okay, today it's our series, Rock and Roll Greats Who Thrilled Us, but since have passed on. This will be episode 23. 1986 is the year, and two notable people, I think. I almost went with another guy instead of the second guy, but at the last minute I said, you know what, you really got to do this guy. You can't really leave him out. So I switched. So anyways, the first guy was going to be the first guy no matter what. And so today we're here to talk about Phil Lynott, vocalist and bass player for Thin Lizzy, foremost mentioned. Okay, so Phil Lynott. A bass player I've known about probably since my early 20s. Yeah, maybe even earlier than that, but at least to my early 20s. I think I discovered Thin Lizzy in about 1982, maybe 1983, just before I moved out on my own, through the Thunder and Lightning album. Actually, it might have been, I think it might have been 85. I might have already been out on my own by then. Anyways, the vitals about Phil Lynott. He was born on August the 20th, 1949 in West. I gotta use my glasses. I wrote really tiny here. West Bromwich, Staffordshire, England. And he died January the 4th, 1986, at the age of 36 in Salisbury, Wiltshire, England, of course. He was an Irish rock star, having lived with his grandparents in Dublin. Music was rock, hard rock, blues rock, heavy metal, and Celtic rock. He was originally just a vocalist, but then eventually picked up the bass. Years of active was 65 to 85, and his mother, Philomena Lynott, was born in Dublin, Ireland. And his father, Cecil Paris, born in Georgetown, British Guyana. So, anyways, take these off now. You can see a little better up top. Phil Lynott's history is fairly scattered. He developed his stage and his bass playing after he had already started to become musically inclined. Usually sometimes these guys tend to have, or like rock musicians in general, tend to have some kind of talent that comes out when they perform rock music. For him, he developed his talent while he was doing this. So his first band was in 1965, the Black Eagles. Then he moved on to work with. I put one thing in a little bit different. Okay, so he first was the singer for Skid Row, of all bands. I did not know this until I started doing this research. And in Skid Row, he was with Gary Moore, who eventually ended up playing with him in Thin Lizzy at some point as well. He learned to play bass. So anyways, he played with Skid Row for a while as their singer. He didn't play any instruments at that point in time. Then I think he got sick and was out of the band for about 2 or 3 months, and they decided to basically go as a threesome, and he was left out the door. But the guy who was kind of the leader of the band, where was his name? I wrote it down here. Give me a second. My notes are kind of all over the place here. Brendan Shields was the kind of the leader of Skid Row, and he decided to teach him how to play the bass guitar. So he got him a bass, and he taught him how to play the bass guitar. And when he became comfortable enough, that's when he started to form his own bands. And the band he formed, of course, was Thin Lizzy with Originally, it was with geez, I can't even, like, my notes are all over the place. I didn't do a very good job with the notes this time. Anyways, I'm just going to flip on it. So, anyways, he ended up as a founding member of Thin Lizzy, playing the bass and the guitar. Not the guitar, I mean and doing lead vocals. And he did most of the writing too. His writing is, I would say it's very, how do you say, like, it's very working class type writing. His type of writing, it really much associates him with the working class. So, having grown up in Dublin with his grandparents, he had a happy childhood. Apparently, he had problems living with his mother in Scotland, racism because he had parents of ethnic origin. His father was black. So he had a problem with racism. So his mother sent him to live with her parents in Dublin, Ireland, and this was his first experience at having a father full time in his life. Not that his father didn't send money and stuff to help them, but wasn't part of his life. So this allowed him to experience more of a normal childhood, I guess. And he was apparently happy when he grew up in Ireland, in Dublin. So, anyways, they formed the band Thin Lizzy, and they played. And it took a while, but they finally got their first hit when Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak after that, and then a few more minor hits. And then he replaced the original guitarist with Robbo, and with Scott Gorham. So then they had that dual guitar bit, which was they were one of the first bands to do this. And he had a very distinctive voice. Kind of a heavy voice, Anyways, at first he was very kind of shy, stand off to the side as a lead vocalist, and let the guitar player kind of take over, which really wasn't suitable. And some of the bands that he played on tour with, the headlining bands, were going to drop them a couple times because he just didn't have much of a stage presence. So he stepped up and changed his style and made himself more the front guy. And I think he's one of the great frontmen myself. I really like the sound of his voice. I like his kind of different sounding vocals, but also his different type of writing. And he actually did write a couple books of poetry later after Thin Lizzy broke up. When he went solo, he did do a couple poetry books, and I think he formed another band. Yeah, I wrote it down here somewhere. Yeah, after his poetry books and he had done his solo bit, he also reformed a new band called Grand Slam. But he had by this point developed a kind of serious heroin addiction, which then would plague him up to his death. So after the Thin Lizzy era, it just basically did solo stuff, and every once in a while they'd get back together and they did another album. Actually did my favorite of their albums, which is Thunder and Lightning, with John Sykes on guitar along with Scott Gorham. Very heavy album compared to a lot of their stuff in the past, which varied between a kind of a bluesy rock feel up to a kind of a hard rock feel, and pop in there as well. But Thunder and Lightning was a much heavier album. The title track, of course, is one of the heaviest of their songs. And they've had some really notable musical albums that are quite different from each other. Renegade being another one. Jailbreak, Black Rose, all these albums. Anyways, so towards the end, his heroin addiction got the better of him, and he ended up dying of overdose. So not really the way you want a guy of this kind of stature to end up passing along. They did honor him a couple of times. I think the band got back together and did a tour in his honor, or a show, and I think it was a show in his honor. And then they also they reformed as a band, like the guys from Thin Lizzy reformed as a band, but they didn't call themselves Thin Lizzy because it would have felt wrong in their opinion, so they didn't do that. Anyways, they did erect a statue in his honor in Dublin. The Phil Lynott statue in Dublin. So for me, Phil Lynott is his voice, his different style of bass playing, maybe because he picked it up later, and their kind of music was very different than you get in a lot of hard rock, heavy metal bands. But definitely a band that never kind of achieved the kind of superstardom that they probably deserved to have. They were more of a cult. They had a huge cult following. They're really well liked by people who liked Thin Lizzy, really liked them quite a bit. Anyways, there you have it, Phil Lynott. So number 2 for tonight, I actually originally was going to go with the Crocus guy, Tommy Kiefer, because I like him, but I decided you can't pass on Cliff Burton. Even though I'm not a huge Metallica fan, I do listen to their stuff on occasion. I have several other albums here. I think most of the ones he performed on. But he really wasn't, they're really not my style of music, so to speak. Thrash metal I was never a huge thrash metal fan. I do like Slayer a bit, and Metallica and Anthrax, but I don't listen to it a lot. Once in a while, it's a once in a while thing for me. But Cliff Burton, I think, needed to be mentioned here. He was a strong member and a prolific writer with Metallica on probably their biggest part of their history too. So about Cliff Burton, he was born February the 10th, 1962, I believe. Yes, 62, at Castro Valley, California. He died September 27th, 1986, at the age of 24 at, I'm going to probably screw this up, Durap, Sweden. The music he played, of course, was thrash music, and he was the bass player primarily. Like, that's what he played. And he was active from 74 to 86. Okay, so his music career started with classical and piano lessons, which is not really that uncommon. Maybe uncommon for the period he was in, but wasn't that uncommon for musicians to start their music careers with this kind of thing. This is what gets them going, right? He cites that the major influences on his bass playing, once he started learning to play bass at 13, the people he cites as being his most influential are people that I like as well. Geddy Lee, Geezer Butler, Stanley Clarke, Lemmy Kilmister, and of course Phil Lynott, who we just talked about. The first band was called Easy Street, kind of named after a strip joint in the area. In that band with him was Jim Martin and Mike Borden, who eventually were future members of Faith No More. His first professional band was a band called Trauma, and while he was with them, James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich saw him performing and were amazed at his ability, and actually thought they were getting a guitar player until they realized that what he had been playing was a bass. You know, he had a style that was very guitar sounding. Sometimes I feel that way about Geddy Lee as well, so he may have gotten some of that from him. But he liked very different type of bass players too, so that's possible. Anyways, they approached him and then asked to recruit him. They wanted him to be the bass player, but since they were located in Los Angeles, he said he would only do it if they moved to the Bay Area. He didn't feel comfortable with moving to Los Angeles. And since they wanted him in the band so bad, they decided to do that, and that's what they did. Yeah, so anyways, like I said before, his bass style is sometimes confused with guitar. because he's a very front bass player, like plays out front. This is not always the case with a lot of bands. And if you look at it, the bass players that he cited, Geddy Lee, Geezer Butler in particular, those two are very front bass players. Like their sound is up front, I think anyways, and so I think that's probably had an influence on him. Okay, so when the band reached its breakthrough album, sorry, I want to do that tonight, but it's just constant, with Master of Puppets. So they reached their breakout point with the Master of Puppets album, which he was fairly influential on. I believe he wrote on 6 of the 8 tracks on the album. And but unfortunately, it was his final album with the band. Not because they kicked him out or anything they did wrong. They liked him quite a bit. He was a really good bass player. It was just unfortunate that he was killed in a bus crash. The story goes that they were complaining that they couldn't sleep very well on the bus, so they played cards, and he won by drawing an ace, and so he got to choose, and he chose the bed at the back of the bus when the other guy slept at the front of the bus, and the bus rolled. He was thrown out the window, and the bus rolled on top of him, killed him instantly, and the rest of it is up to anybody who's interested in following the history of people dying. They could do that, but to me, it's just unfortunate that a breakout album like that, and he dies. And this is not really that uncommon either, because just not too long ago I did one on Bon Scott, who had their huge breakout North American album, and he got killed, right? So it happens sometimes. Sometimes that's the way it is. Anyways, unfortunately for Cliff, his career came way short at 24. It's way too early to die, especially not even being a rock star and not even dying from drugs. It's almost embarrassing in some ways. Anyways, there you have it. Cliff Burton, bass player for Metallica. Giving out kudos to him for his great bass playing and original style. And I hope you enjoyed this video, number 23 in the series. Another one will come on Thursday morning. This one will be released tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning. And I hope you enjoy this. And if you do, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments about Cliff Burton or about Phil Lynott, please let me know. Okay, there was one thing I almost forgot. And I've done this a couple times where I've had to do the video again because I forgot. But I wanted to give honorable mentions, or at least, mention people who passed that year who I didn't do a specific thing on, but they should be acknowledged, and I'm going to acknowledge them now. Got about 7 or 8. Tommy Kiefer, of course, from Crocus, who I had originally planned to do and decided to do Burton instead. Kelly Isley Jr. from the Isley Brothers. Benny Goodman from the Benny Goodman Big Band era. I like the big bands quite a bit. I've been giving honorable mentions to like Kay Kaiser and all the other ones that have come before. Tracy Pugh of the Birthday Parties and 2 others. Scatman Crothers, of course, right? I don't really. I think of Scatman as a musician, but he also had an acting career. The most notable acting part for me that I remember was him as a kid. When I was a kid, watching Sanford and Son, and he was the garbage man on that show. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. And then, of course, Lee Dorsey, too. So, another famous guy. So, there you have it. Another episode of Rock Stars That Thrilled Us, but have since passed on, is complete. Number 23. Many more to go. We've got, I think, 33 more to go. Wow. But we're now past the halfway point in the 1980s and moving towards the end of the year, the end of the decade. there's more. There seems to be more and more people every year that I have to decide on who's going to be it. At one point, there was a couple of them I had actually put 3 to do 3 people, and then even one that I've done put up to do 4. But I said 2. I'm going to stick with that from here on. And I did do one with 3, but it was the first one, and I don't think I'll do any more that way. It just takes too much time, and the video is a bit too long. So we'll just give honorable mentions. We'll just have to choose 2. That's the way it's going to have to be. I may do one double episode, like an A and B, for one later in the 90s, because quite a few people passed that year, and I liked a lot of them, so I decided I would pick 4 of them. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to hearing your comments and discussing this great music that we listen to. Tomorrow night, well, actually, I did say Thursday for the other one, but it's actually Friday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. For some reason, I thought it was Tuesday tomorrow, but it's Wednesday tomorrow. So this video will come out tomorrow morning, and then another one on Friday, and then again on Sunday. So tomorrow also will be a look back. Sorry, not a look back. Wednesday night favorites. I've been working on my 3-part progger for the last few days. I'm not quite ready yet, so I may do something else for the Wednesday night favorites this week, and then have an extra week to work on that and get it together, because there's just so much. Wow, I can't believe how many progressive rock songs I like. It's almost ridiculous. Anyways, I hope to see you tomorrow. I hope to hear from you tomorrow. So you have a good night. Prog Monster out. Bye.